Make sure you're unlocking your bait's full potential with the right trailer choice. Recently, I've been talking about chatterbaits and jigs and spinnerbaits, which are all great options for spring bass fishing. But I always get the same question: what kind of trailers am I using? So let's go through all the different types of trailer choices that I use on different kinds of jigs. With a chatterbait, the first thing to remember is that the way that this bait gets action from this blade, and this blade is going to cause the back of your chatterbait to wobble a whole bunch. What that means is we don't need a trailer that has to make action on its own, like a paddle tail. I prefer something more like a straight tail worm. This is the spunk shad, and as you can see, it's a nice pintail, and it moves a whole bunch when I lightly shake this chatterbait, which is great. Also, something like the Aros Mad Pulse is a great option. And I know a lot of people like using a craw trailer on the back of the chatterbaits. If you like that, go for it. All more the power to you. However, if I want that more fish-like profile, I'll go to something like these. This is a Yamamoto Zako or the Berkley Stinger. These both give your chatterbaits a little bit of a meatier profile. And when it comes to spinnerbait fishing, a lot of the spinnerbaits I use, I don't use a trailer on because things like the Megabass SV3, as you can see, it has these longer, thicker strands. These act as your trailer. And when it comes to spinnerbaits, a lot of the times you're going to get a lot of short strikes. And I don't like to use a stinger hook on my spinnerbaits. It just causes more issues for the bass than I think it's worth. So going to something that has its own built-in trailer, make sure when the bass eats this, it's gonna get that hook. However, if I am gonna use a trailer, I kind of go with the same idea for my chatterbaits. I like a pintail type of trailer. And actually, this is a harder to find soft plastic. This is the Zoom split tail worm. So actually, when it comes to spinnerbaits, I will use a paddle tail from time to time. What's great with a paddle tail is that the blades and the vibration of the blades will draw the bass in. But once the bass get close enough to the spinnerbait, they'll start keying in the kick of this paddle tail. One thing to note is that if you use a paddle tail on the back of your spinnerbait will want to rise a bit more. So if you're fishing in shallow water, that's great. However, if you're trying to keep your spinnerbait at a deeper depth, the paddle tail can make that a little harder. Now let's talk about jigs, and specifically first, a swim jig. When it comes to swim jigs, I am in the camp of only using paddle tails. Again, I know people like using craw trailers, but the reason why I really like a paddle tail, especially a wide kicking paddle tail like a Keitech Fat Swing Impact, is because with the right type of trailer on a swim jig, when that swim jig is kicking, while you're giving it a retrieve, you can actually get the whole bait to kind of do this left to right head shimmy. And what that means is in the water, the skirt of your swim jig is actually going to pulse with the movement of the head. It gives your swim bait a little bit more of a life action. However, when you use a craw trailer that's just fluttering in the back, you're not going to get as much of that head wobble. But those are my favorite trailers. If there's a trailer I didn't talk about or you have a favorite, leave them in the comments below. So what are you waiting for? Get out there.